Welcome back to another edition of the Chasing Issues program, where we discuss culture, politics, and current events with the editors and writers of the Chasing Issues web magazine. We're your hosts. I'm Greg.
And I'm Rob.
And today, should the federal minimum wage be raised? Yes or no? What do you think? I don't know. Join us and see. And, of course, we're going to be talking about our beginnings here at the Chasing Issues web magazine. Stand by. All right, Rob, how's it going today?
Really good. How about yourself?
Can't complain. How's the weather out there?
Nice and toasty, somewhere in the 60s as usual.
Well, that's always
What about
nice
you?
to hear.
What about you? You got snow yet?
Not in the Midwest, but it is getting chilly.
Yeah, that's where the mailman made up that saying, isn't it? From Midwest.
That's true. That's true. So today, the federal minimum wage, should it be raised or not? What do you think, Rob?
Well, so this is basically against the liberals' living wage versus the minimum wage versus no set wage. You know, $7.25 is the federal minimum wage. It's been that way for quite a while. And liberals basically want to raise it over 100%. They want to get it to $15 an hour. I mean, that's an awful lot of stuff for unskilled labor, wouldn't you say?
I would agree. As you stated, the federal minimum wage is $7.25 an hour, and it's been like that since 2009. I know that everybody's calling right now, and I played a clip leading into this episode of protesters that are protesting at fast food restaurants across the country, and they're protesting for a $15 an hour minimum wage so that they can live on it. Now, I don't know who sold them this bill of broken goods. It may do some good in the short term. They can have an immediate benefit for probably another year or two. But then, obviously, if you raise the average minimum wage, it's going to raise the price of goods and services across the country. And we're going to have inflation. Now, economists will say inflation's good because that means your standard of living will rise with the cost of living. But for them to believe that they're going to be getting this new pay all of a sudden overnight and they're going to be living a high roller life is not going to work.
Yeah, because a higher minimum wage is said to help workers, but the reality is the higher minimum wage helps some workers but hurts more. So, and
Correct.
now the companies are obviously going to react to that. And we were looking at McDonald's earlier. That's just one of the many fast food chains that wants to basically get rid of all the cashiers for a kiosk.
Well, sure. And let's look at it this way. So you've got your local firemen in some smaller towns. And, of course, you've got your I don't know how California has their ambulance district set up. I know here in the Midwest we have, districts. And each district hires their own paramedics and their own ambulance workers, et cetera. And the average pay for them after 2 years of college is around $15. So a lot of them even have an additional year of college, so that brings it a total to 3, almost to a bachelor's degree, just so that they could then be earning the same as someone that works in a fast food restaurant that has no skill, and you don't even have to have a high school diploma. You can just walk in, get a job, and start flipping burgers and serving French fries. So I don't know that that's going to be I know the liberals are always about fair and what's equal. I don't know how that would be fair and equal. I know that there's always a big push that, if you don't need more than that, then why would you take more than that? From what's the old socialist mantra? From those of plenty or whatever it is, it's I have to look it up.
It's got to be something about helping the few from the many, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Well, it seems like companies are hit from all sides anyway. So here they are with the tremendous tax rates. We've got the largest one in the country, and in the world, I should say, in the United States. So that's hurting them already. And you're gonna make everybody get $15 an hour. I mean, obviously they're gonna look ways to cut everything so that they can still take care of their bottom line.
Sure. And of course, that model that I'm missing out is from each according to his ability to each according to his needs. It's kind of interchangeable between communism and socialism. But basically the idea is that if you only need to live on, a certain amount of money, then you forego all the rest that you could potentially earn so you could provide to someone else less fortunate. It's a forced charity, basically.
Yeah, so that's a pretty funny thing when you can put in a $1,500 kiosk to replace a $23,000 a year worker, right?
Wait,
Just
what? Let's
running
back
the
up and
cashier.
explain that a little bit. I'm not sure I follow you. What?
We can get that little slot machine looking thing for 1,500 bucks, plop it in the floor, get rid of that $23,000 money grabber,
That's
putting
true.
burgers in the
That's true.
bag.
Yeah, and so just to further what you're saying is that the salary of an average McDonald worker is about 20 plus thousand a year. You're saying 23, but it could be 28 depending on the area that they work in within the country. So would I trade as a business owner $1,500 to install a machine and put the machine in, or would I rather keep that worker? Well, gee, that's pretty much a no-brainer for me, because then I can change things up, maybe reinvest that into the infrastructure of the business, repave the parking lot, maybe repaint the building. You've got to worry about all these intangibles that people never ever foresee when they go into business, or those people that are not business owners don't foresee. You've got things that you never worry about. You may have 1 month where your plumbing is messed up because somebody decided to flush a whole roll of toilet paper down the drain in the bathroom, and it flooded the bathroom, and now you've got damage in the lobby, and you've got some sort of plug that you've got to have removed by a plumber. Of course, you could always file a claim on the insurance, but if you've ever been in business, insurance for a business is a little bit higher than you do for residential. You're paying for it. And then on top of that, your deductibles are much higher. So while you have a profit margin you can play with, most businesses, the profit margin is not nowhere near as high as what people believe it to be. And in restaurant industry, it's about 3 to 5%, which is pretty low.
Wait a minute. You lost me, man. Profit margin? What the
Yes,
heck
yes.
is
People
that?
don't go into business to be truly altruistic just so that they can pay somebody. They're there to make money.
No
Cha-ching.
way.
Yes.
Wait, let me look in my college books. I didn't learn that. Hold on a second.
And nor would you.
Wait, I'm looking. Wait. I don't see anything about profit in here.
Oh, that's a bad word, right? That's a shame.
Ooh.
Shame.
Oh,
Shame.
what the heck?
Shame.
Ah,
Shame.
ah,
Yeah.
California.
Oh,
California.
it's
California.
horrible.
Oh,
So,
sorry, we're getting off track.
no, but you're right. No one ever talks about it. But then again, why would you open a business? You're there to make money. You're there to grow what little money that you already have.
I'm alive to make money, buddy.
That's
I'm
right.
alive.
That's right. And so you've got to think about, how can I get the most return on my money and on my effort? So if I could easily replace a $20,000+ a year worker, I'm going to do it, especially when it's a $1,500 machine. And I've been to the $1,500 machine little kiosks. There's multiple in this area already here in the Midwest. Surprising. The McDonald's that I was in, we walked right in, and there were, I think, 4 total. Really easy to order from. It's just as simple as you would find on your iPhone or your other electronic devices. You just push in the pictures that has, and if you can't read, you could just push the pictures, and just order from there.
Talking my language.
I think they've been training us with all these devices over the years. It's no more
So you
having
think-
to read
So
and
think
push
about
buttons.
Think about it. The ATM machine, that's been around forever. And that's got to be a job killer right there.
Oh, sure.
That's got to be lowering the numbers.
I remember as a kid that used to call it, when they first introduced it in our little town, they used to call Annie the anytime teller. They even,
Oh
yes,
my
they personified this machine
And,
just to get
now,
people comfortable with using it.
and now we have the little quick checkout things, in the stores. That's there.
Well, sure.
And-
Walmart is huge at that. And I'll have to be honest, I never check out with an actual employee. I always self-check out. For one, I don't usually go and I don't stock up in bulk. My wife will do that, but I'll go and I'll grab a dozen or less items, and I'll just go straight through the self-checkout line.
So, according to the Census Bureau, it says that between $12,000 and $52,000 annually is somewhere where they plot that poverty line, and that depends on the amount of dependents that you have. But so they would like us to make more than $52,000 a year. I mean, I wonder how many Americans even come close to that. I'd say
Oh, a lot.
I'd say the average American can make below that. I mean, anywhere from 30, 20 to 30, they hover around in there. And then you got a couple people working those same kind of wages rather than getting way up there.
Well, I'd like to see how it is that they derive that actual minimum wage, excuse me, not minimum wage, but the poverty line. Because I'll be honest, even at just below that poverty line, you may not be living and rolling like a highballer, but you're living better than 99% of the world. You're not going to bed hungry at night, more than likely. You're not going to drive the newest, greatest car, obviously, but you're still going to be alive, and you're going to be kicking and pretty much fed. Either you may not be able to feed yourself at home, but you can certainly get it at school lunch programs. You're not like the rest of the world that's hoping to make it to the next week because there's poverty and famine and drought and things like that, where they're literally trying to make it alive week to week. And you and I have both been to third world countries, and there's houses that are cardboard boxes and recycled materials that they've picked up out of the trash. Most of the people here in America, I mean, I'm sure there's some, the homeless, etc., but most of America, even below the poverty line, are living in a house that's up to code or pretty close to it. It's fairly safe. They're not worried about, they may be worried about their neighbors, but they're not worried about facing the environment quite as much as you would in another country.
Right. So we can talk about the military for just a second. People probably think that the military doesn't make very much money, but let's look at the basic E2. The PFC in the Marine Corps anyway, less than 2 years is making $1,793 a month. I mean, you can go, let's say you're an E4. Wouldn't you say that takes probably anywhere from 2 to 4 years, 2 to 3 years to pick up that kind of rank? So with that guy, over 3 years is $2,315 a month.
And there again, while you're not getting rich, you can make a living, especially if your significant other is working outside the home, or if not married, you're living in the barracks. You're not going to be living out in town anyway. So you could definitely make ends meet and do quite well.
So that alone right there is $27,780 a year. If you have a spouse, now they're going to tack on more money. And then if you live, they're going to give you a housing allowance, which is quite a good substance too, over $1,000 a month. So now you're looking at close to $40,000 a year as an E4 in the military.
And you could, if you wanted to, apply for federal assistance like food stamps, et cetera, to even further stretch that dollar.
Yeah, because now you're still in the poverty level. Wow.
And that's the kicker. That's where the military doesn't make a whole lot of money. But there again, really, if you're looking at it all the way up to about E4, you're still entry level.
Now, just for giggles, let's look at an officer, somebody with a college degree, so we can almost talk about the college a little bit. College in the civilian world, college in the military. An O3, it means making $4,047 under 2 years a month. So that's pretty good cash right there.
Yes, and to make it even more attractive, the government will repay your college student loans. So that's something to think about. To anyone that believes that going and getting a college degree is not necessarily for them because they don't have the money, there are grants, there are loans, and then if you serve your time in the military, you can have those resolved. They'll have them paid off, etc.
Now, currently, the post 9/11 GI Bill is $86,000 a year. So if you exit the military and you've done like 2 years in and you've got that benefit, then now you can go to college with $86,000 in mind, at least get a bachelor's, maybe even a master's, and then they're going to pay you what they call the COLA, which is somewhere hovering around $2,000 a month tax-free for as long as you're going and it's considered full-time student.
Yeah, and the COLA, just for the listeners, is a cost of living allowance.
There you go. So the cost of try to offset your housing.
Yes.
Apartment or whatever. So we just want to throw that out there just as a little side note that the military is not that bad. But if you don't want to do the military, what we want to preach here at Chasing Issues is just becoming better, right, Greg?
That's true. There's always ways that you could do some self-learning. You can always improve yourself. There's a lot of books that you can pick up and learn and pick up some good habits. And remember, it takes 40 days or longer to build a habit, so just don't think you're going to pick up the book, read it one weekend, and toss it on the shelf and move on, and you're going to have absorbed that and picked up that new habit.
So
So
besides college, I know you're a big proponent of trade schools. Am I right?
I am, yes. Not everybody's meant to go to college. There's a lot of trades that are hurting for employees. Now the problem is a lot of people want to show up, especially in the construction industry, work a week and then disappear. That's not going to benefit anyone because, for one, they just spent that first week probably trying to get you, brought up to speed on the lingo and the little things. You're going to start off as like a gopher. Go for this, go for that. This is the name of this tool. This is the name of this building material, etc. So it's going to take a little bit of time for you to get acclimated to this new environment and this new job. They're going to want to try and spend time and money to build you into the employee that they need you to be, whether you're going to be a carpenter. And there's different types of carpenters. There's a framing carpenter, a finish carpenter, etc. Now,
Yep.
it's just like in the military. They're going to try and push you into where they need you. But a lot of them have a good eye, especially in some of the union shops. And I'm not a big union guy, but I do see the benefit in it because they identify because they do have apprentice programs and they move you up to a journeyman, etc. They identify what you're good at and what you want to do and move you along into that program to find the best fit for you. So I do see a benefit in it, especially in the trade areas.
Yeah, because we really need plumbers, we need auto mechanics. I mean, look at how technical our cars are getting now. Basically, the hybrids and whatnot. If you're not specially, trained, you can't work on those things. You're probably going to electrocute yourself. That's a fact.
And that's right.
So,
And that's the one thing that I like I said, I made the statement earlier that I'm not a big union guy. That's the one thing that I really do value with the union is that they educate their workers. And that's probably hands down a lot better than what you would get at any other employer. And that's because of the union. They take the time. You could pull up a Joe the handyman, the carpenter. He calls himself one, and you could pull up a union carpenter. And I tell you what, one will shine and the other one won't. And it won't be Joe the handyman usually, unless he used to be a former union carpenter.
and there are actually different types of unions, Teamsters, that kind of thing. There are some sections of it that are more based on capitalism versus, all the
true.
control, the big. There's a difference. We could go on and on in that. I know some people who've worked in some of the unions that they say, oh no, it's nothing like what you're thinking, the liberal side. There's another side of the union thing,
But-
and it's smaller, but it's there.
You will pay more for a union tradesman, but you're getting some value in it because you're not going to have a union guy show up and do anything that's not within the local code, et cetera. And so that's the value. They've been educated, so they know what not to do, what to do, how to do it right.
Right.
And so that's what
So
I value with it. So yeah, what you were saying was that there is a lot of trade skills that are in a shortage for employees right now. Like I said before, plumbers and carpenters. It's just that people, especially this younger generation, just don't seem to want to get out there. And it's not just do the hard work, but do the hard work for enough years that you've built up that knowledge, skills, and abilities.
And I've watched some really young people, some people that are close to me as well, where they got out on their own and they got a minimum wage or a little bit higher job, and now they get it. Now they are struggling to get higher in the the pecking order because this minimum wage thing, I don't care if it is $15 an hour, it's not going to cut it. And most of the time, people are making more or less $9 or $10 an hour. It's still not cutting it. And the problem is if any little sort of hiccup or emergency or whatever happens, they feel like their entire world is going to come crashing down on them. So this whole minimum wage, I hope we can just stop saying that, oh, minimum wage, that's all there is and we got to rely on it. No, you need to go further than whatever they give you as a minimum wage. You need to go past it. You need to go way past it. Go for broke. Forget this low thinking idea. Wouldn't you say?
I would say that if you're still 40 and working a minimum wage job, then you lack ambition.
You need to go for it. You need to do more.
Now, granted, I understand that there does need to be service employees, people that are at McDonald's and other fast food restaurants. I'm not picking on McDonald's. They're a pretty fantastic organization, and I've seen them cultivate. And I've got people that I've grown up with that are now managers and making quite a bit of money as a manager of a McDonald's, et cetera. But the problem is you're talking 1 in probably 200 employees that make it that level, and it really is targeted at just being a job that you are going to do while you're in high school or maybe even in college. It's not to raise a family on. And sure, everybody makes mistakes and they may get settled into a particular rut in life. However, this is where you need to have some ambition. You need to dig down, have some intestinal fortitude, as we used to call it in the Marine Corps. Nut up, whatever phrase you want to call it by, and spend the hours in the evenings either to learn a trade or to go to college or to do just some self-improvement. Even if you just go to the library, pick up a book, find out what kind of skills. Sometimes, Rumsfeld summed it up pretty good, and he caught a lot of flack. There are the known knowns, the known unknowns, and the unknown unknowns. And so basically, in a nutshell, okay, so let's put this into some context. Okay, there's the known knowns. Well, the known known is that I'm working minimum wage and I'm not going to make it. You know that you know it, right? The known unknowns. Well, I know there are things I don't know, and if I don't know them, then I need to figure them out. So I need to go do some self-improvement. And then, of course, as you learn some self-improvement and you learn some additional steps or pick up some additional skills, etc., you're like, oh, crap, I didn't know that I didn't know this. So that's the unknown unknown. So by you furthering your education and you furthering, your additional skills, I don't care if you're talking with a neighbor down the street or next door or across town or whatever, who is in the union that is a carpenter. If you just pick up a couple of skills, maybe know how to use a measuring tape, etc., and you could walk on to a job as a gopher, you're going to start off making more than you would as minimum wage most of the time. Maybe not much more, but who knows? This could lead to a great, glorious career for you. And it's not just with that. You've got to have that ambition. I was hired in a position that was, it wasn't necessarily an entry-level position, but it was a position that didn't really have much of a future. And so after I got off working the midnight shift, I volunteered, not knowing whether or not it would turn into a full-time gig or not, but I was hopeful. I mean, I certainly did it not out of the goodness of my heart, but out of my own self-interest. And that was so that I can improve my skills, maybe make a name for myself as a hard worker, and then move to another position. And guess what? When the position came available, guess who applied and got interviewed and hired?
I think that would be you.
That's right. Because I put in, an hour or two for weeks before, to learn in a new trade, even though I was not getting any compensation for it. And they saw that and they rewarded that. Now, you're not always going to be successful, but you've got to put in that time and that effort no matter what.
So let's move on into a little bit to help people out some. If you're wondering how you can better yourself and get somewhere where you didn't think you could before, and Greg and I had this little sore subject going on because it seems like the liberal states are the only ones catering to this. There's something called Regional Occupational Programs, or ROP programs. So they provide job training classes in occupational areas such as 3D computer animation, accounting, veterinary sciences, business, computer science, web design, culinary arts, construction, medical assistant, that's a big one, landscape maintenance, child development, graphic communications, commercial photography, automotive technology, and much more. And these usually come from the schools, by the way. So when you start looking this stuff up, you'll find that it comes from the schools. So you go along the same lines with adult education, further in education, maybe getting your high school diploma or GED. But this is also there. I know quite a few people that have the medical assistant jobs, and they got these from these ROP programs. You can always look this up. Over 2,000 classes are held alone at over 108 locations throughout San Diego County in California. We did a little research. All the liberal states are kind of doing it. So Chicago had a whole bunch. Washington, D.C. had a whole bunch. It seems like it's more of the liberal stuff, but you can look around, do more, more research and find out. This could be a money thing rather than only a liberal thing, but I'm thinking it kind of is on the liberal side. Maybe it's based on population. I'm not really too sure, but just to throw something extra out there, at least there is something to do, because we here at Chasing Issues, we really do want to help everybody. We'll go ahead and politically talk about what we believe and what we think is right, more on the conservative side. But the goal here is to bring everybody together and make it so that everybody matters, because everybody does. Isn't that right, Greg?
That's true. That's true. And even though we may not always agree with the programs, if they're there, let's use them. Let's try and pull ourselves up. And see, the only reason why that I have an issue with a lot of them is because it's the government replacing, the neighbor. So if
Right.
the neighbor could set up a charity and try to improve using his own wealth or whatever, then he could certainly have an impact. Just because you got money doesn't mean you lose all responsibility to your community.
That's
Back in
right.
the old days, when I say old days, not even our old days, but let's look at J.P. Morgan and some of the other robber barons of society back in the day. They get a lot of flack in history books these days, it seems like. But if you read about them, they were actually pretty fantastic people. Yeah, they had a lot of wealth, but they also shared that wealth. They built libraries, and they donated a ton of money to start, like the University of Chicago and other different colleges. They wanted to push and raise up the middle class by like I said, building libraries and schools and bringing up the education level of most of America in one way or the other. And so I feel like we were missing that within our own society these days, because the state, and I say the state, the federal and state governments have been inserting themselves and pushing their own programs, where that needs to be brought back to the responsibility on the shoulders where it lays, and that would be those that have the means and availability. Let's do it by choice, though. Let's not do it by force. There's a difference. And so if we can kind of get that movement going and set these programs up. And let's be honest, there are programs out there. I mean, Bill and Melinda Gates have programs out there that provide funding to schools. So just because you go to your local government and your search is fruitless doesn't mean that you're done. Take the time, search online. You can go to the computer at the library and use the internet for free and find programs and money.
That's a super good point. I would definitely go to the library. If I didn't have the stuff figured out in life, I would be in that library. I've thought about that as I've sat in the library. I would just be scouring that place, asking the librarians, help me with the computer stuff. How do I get online and find a job? You know what? There's so much stuff probably to do, but you need to go in there and you need to ask questions and spend a lot of time. I think a lot of people, you see all these people that are mad, protesting, all that. I think the better answer is when you're a teenager, and your parents are trying to help you and guide you and all that. Instead of rebelling, I think you need to start gearing yourself towards this successful thing. When you see these opportunities, you need to take it. How many people, I mean, a lot of people, they're just doing the wrong things and they end up 25 years old, whatever, outside screaming at everyone about a minimum wage hike. We need to be better than that. We need to go for broke, and minimum wage, that cannot be our end goal.
No.
Money is everything. That's what we keep saying. And why is money everything? Money is everything because money buys comfort. Money buys relaxation. That's what it does. When you have enough of it, it's not about, oh, the almighty dollar. It's about you can now free up your time, relax more. That's what it's really all about, enjoying life.
Sure.
It's not necessarily the cash. It's starting to figure out how to enjoy your life and relax.
That's true. Or to flip it on the other coin, money may not buy happiness, but it does allow you to pursue your passion. It may not buy happiness, but it does remove obstacles. It may not buy happiness, but it can certainly improve your already sense of well-being. It may not buy happiness, but you know what? Your gift through charity, through your time or your money, would certainly brighten someone's day because you've fed them, because you've donated at the soup kitchen. Money may not buy happiness, but it may brighten someone's year because you just paid for their college education. There again, there's so much that you can do if you have the means, but you've got to get the means. And that's what we're talking about.
And we're trying to get the country to step it up, the whole country. And just right now, the country is in turmoil. They're just crazy and angry about all these issues. Racism, money, wages, it's all unfair. Oh, woe is me. Well, this is a bootstrap nation, and it's time to reach down, grab a hold, pull up, get out of the mud, and start making it.
Yeah,
so,
and I'll admit we have contributed on our Facebook page and a lot of our postings on our website to some of the division and some of the negativity that's out there, only because it's quick and easy news, and we do like to keep up. I like to see what's going on, and I like to post and share that information with everybody else that's our readers to keep them informed. But at the same time, we have to take a step back and do a little self-reflection and say, look, we need to kind of add a little bit more positivity and bring this up a little bit more. The election's over and it's time to rebuild one way or the other, and let's bring people together. Let's start posting some positive news and some additional information, and kind of like Rob said, let's pull everything up by the bootlaces and let's get it going. Get out of the mud.
Yeah, I think we need to, this is a little bit of Love Nation, right? We're going to turn this into the Love Nation. Everyone start getting some happiness going around.
Well, that was as soon as Trump won the election. Well, in fact, even before that, because that was the motto. I don't know, for what, 2-3 weeks before that, may have been longer, but I only heard about it for 2-3 weeks before that. They were chanting that it was, love Trump's hate, because they were claiming that Trump was a hater, etc. Well, how about we work with love with Trump? And I think that was the message that they were missing from Trump. Trump loves America, or at least that's what he's claiming. I know I certainly do, and you certainly do, and I love everybody that's with America. And so let's all work together. If you truly, as someone who opposed Trump, if you truly want and believe that love can win and we can be stronger together, then let's continue on with that.
But we really do get tired of the slacking. I mean, we come from the Marine Corps, where that's not even allowed. I mean, if you're slacking,
nope,
you're out of there.
That's
you're
right.
Going to you're shoveling potatoes for a couple of months, man, because that's where we come from. That's what we respect. That's what we like. We really just want people to try and take on that really good attitude, that positive attitude.
Well, it's not just because of the military. I mean, I don't know about you, but I grew up.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up in the Midwest, and we had to chop wood for our fire to keep us warm in the wintertime. And in the summertime, if you needed a little extra money, but you couldn't or didn't want to work fast food, you could go certainly, work in the fields and make 15 cents a row. There's a lot of hard work, and a lot can be said for the hard work.
Yeah, and I was, wearing cardboard shoes, walking 2 blocks to high school and back in 70-degree weather when I grew up. So, you know what I'm saying? It was real hard.
Real hard. I don't want to hear the 70-degree weather
with
stuff
my Vans with a hole in the bottom.
A little surfer raw, right?
There you go.
Or were you a
we ready to
skateboard
switch
raw?
topics and start about our beginning?
Yeah, I think this is a good transition point.
All right, man. Cool.
So what was it like?
What the heck did it? I know what did it.
I do too.
I know what did it. Can we say Facebook rant? Can we say Facebook rant?
Well, you're forgetting the S on that. There were multiple rants.
It was like a send and receive.
Back and forth.
So look what's been going on with this whole, I got relatives that have been blocked on Facebook, friends that have been canceled out, or at least you thought they were friends, because here you are, conservative, Republican, or whatever fashion, whatever level you're at in that belief, super right wing, left of Attila the Hun, or,
or I could even go the opposite, because
libertarian.
I tend to straddle with the libertarian movement. I get a lot of flack from both sides. I get some conservatives that lash out and say, how dare you have this stance on this? I thought you were conservative. And I try and explain, I am conservative. However, I'm for government to be out of my business, period. So no matter what stance you're on, just get out of my business. I'll leave you alone. You leave me alone.
Rhino, man.
Hello. No rhinos here, but I just want a smaller government. Just stay out of my business.
So it seems like after I canceled out all the people that were just sending nuclear bombs to my Facebook page, and it got kind of quiet, then I was just so frustrated. Here I am living in the blue state, a red dot in the blue state, and it feels like, man, there's just nobody I can talk to. Although my family is all pretty conservative, probably a little bit more than I am, but that's not always going to work. So I reached out to my fellow Missourian, Greg, and I just started putting issues up there. Issues, look at that. So what was the first thing I threw up there? It was the universal health care, wasn't it?
I believe so, yes.
And we were just going on and on and on. So the way I did it was I just put out a question. First question, what do you think about universal health care? And he would come back. And then we would keep going and keep going and keep going until the threads got super long. And it ended up being this great explanation of healthcare and why the United States really can't pull it off or shouldn't pull it off, combination of the two. So then after we were done, I had relatives calling back from other states too, and they were saying, oh my gosh, that was fantastic. I learned so much. That was great, blah, blah, blah. And then Did we do another one? I think we did
We
another
did
one after that.
4 or 5, yeah.
So what were some of the other topics? I don't really remember what we were doing. You did
We
some
were
rail
talking about
service stuff.
high-speed rails and mass transit, and for one, and then another one was talking about. We did talk about minimum wage a little bit. Let's
Minimum
see.
wage. I do remember that one.
That was a
Yep.
big one. And then we did one with, well, it was a lot. We kind of, it's really hard when you talk about any specific program like this, that because the big thing is that from a lot of the comments that I see online and some of the ones that we started with early in our chats on Facebook was everybody likes to always compare the United States with Europe. The problem with
Right.
that is, though, is Europe is a much smaller area in its highly condensed population. And so we'll just briefly talk about light rail or even high speed rail. You know, their infrastructure, because it's highly compact population, their distances are not as much. If you were trying to have a high speed rail, say from Los Angeles to Las Vegas, that's almost the equivalent of going across Europe. And so in Europe, there might be multiple cities to feed into that rail system. Whereas if you have that high-speed rail system from Los Angeles to Las Vegas, you might have a full train, but there's not going to be any stops in between. And there's going to be a lot of miles of track. And so it's almost comparing apples to oranges. It's not going to work. And the same thing could be said just about with any socialized program that you can bring up. And so we would kind of go back and forth with that. And I think, well, like I said, we had about 4 or 5 different topics, and it was great. You're right. The responses were fantastic. People were pointing out that they learned so much. Not only did they learn because of what we posted, but then they also followed some of the links that I posted, or sometimes in the case that I posted some videos. I know one of them we were talking about the financial collapse of 2008 and how it was all derivative based, basically, for the collapse of the mortgage industry, et cetera. And so I posted a couple of videos. One of them was a whiteboard video from NPR, and it fully explained the concept of derivatives and how it's the effects are like insurance, basically, for securities. And so people watched those videos and they left comments. And these are things that, yeah, they heard these things and these terms like derivatives mentioned in the news, but they never really spent any time to learn about what exactly that is or how that affects the financial markets. So for them, it was just a big education.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, man. All over that one.
Yeah.
So, I can't really remember exactly how we started going to what we've got now. I do remember one of your phrases to me was, "Well, I want money but not a job."
Yeah.
and I thought that's the greatest saying I've ever heard in my life, I think. You know? So I started, I think that's what I want too. and let's face it, and I don't know, people don't really understand, but this podcasting, the websites, I mean, this is the way, the future right here, this communication, this Facebook stuff, the Twitter. I mean, if you're not into this kind of stuff, you're kind of behind, and it's only going to go further.
Well, it's just an advanced form of communication. And while I may have said that I want money but not a job, it doesn't mean I don't want to pursue my passion. And my passion is this, what we're doing. It's telling stories and discussing the issues, communicating that out to people and sharing it, and hopefully trying to bring more people together to have those conversations that, growing up as a kid, we would get together with our families at Thanksgiving, et cetera. And man, that's, one of two things that you didn't talk about, usually politics or religion. And,
right.
Because next thing you know, mashed potatoes and fists are being flown through the air. And that's not, really, those should be some of the topics right up front. Hey, how's it going? What's in your life? And how's everything else in your life being affected by X, by blank? What's the government, because whether we want to hide and bury our heads in the sand and not discuss these issues or not, it's not going to affect us, we're not going to be able to make a change if we don't at least educate ourselves or discuss them. We should be able to feel comfortable enough to say, hey, how do you feel about this and why? Because you may have a certain feeling, but if I'm not in your shoes or I've not been there, then I may have a locked perspective. But if I listen to you and you explain it to me in a rational, logical way, and we have a reasonable conversation and talk about it without getting heated and threatening each other, then we can kind of maybe see things differently and maybe come to an agreement and walk that gray line.
Right.
It doesn't have to be exactly left or right. You can have kind of a moderate approach a little bit and find something that would keep everybody not necessarily happy, but at least, familiarly happy. So
Right. And so I hope everybody stays with us because we've got big dreams, big goals. We always preach all this stuff. Well, that's exactly how we think. So before you know it, you're going to see us on TV somewhere. You're going to hear us. We're going to be changing political spectrums across the nation and across the world. Mark our words, you're going to hear us, And after we edit out that funny cricket noise earlier, it'll all get better. But that's a progression of when you try and jump in and do stuff. You're going to make mistakes, and you're going to get back on that horse, and you're going to keep riding.
my thing is that our politicians are elected to work for us, but yet we allow them to control the message and the issues that are their campaign. It's time for us to take that power back. It's time for our voices to be heard. It's time for them to hear our message and to hear our issues that mean the most to us. But we can't do that if we don't discuss that with our neighbor. If we fail to have those simple discussions around the dinner table with our family and friends, or our neighbors, or just some random stranger as you're getting your oil changed at Jiffy Lube, then how are the politicians ever going to be able to hear your voice and act on your behalf? And that's where I hope to make some change.
Yeah, so the goal is to get people interested, and you can't always get them all. So, you can only do what you can do, but we put this knowledge out in a really good way, and it'll work. So that's the goal, is to affect everybody, in a different way. And that's what we are going to do.
Let's hope so.
Yep.
So
good, man.
Let's back up just a little bit further in life than other than just within our Facebook rants. Let's talk about what it was like as a child growing up in the 80s, and let's contrast that with what it's like to today in today's today's children. And so I want to throw this out there in case we have any millennials that listen to our program here at the Chasing Issues program. We won't take very much time because I know we're getting short. We're going to try and keep this at the minimum of an hour, or excuse me, at the maximum of an hour. And so what I wanted to bring this up for was that as a child, while we did not have this mass media and we didn't have the news on our phone with us 24/7, we did have the news. And whether or not it is just a perception because we lived in the life that we did, it seemed like things were much safer back in our day. I remember
even in California, man.
Yeah. I remember as a kid, I could get on my bike at my house on a Saturday or during the weekday in the summer. And I could ride anywhere I wanted to in town. I could ride down to the river. I could ride to a friend's house across town or whatever. I could play down the street and not ever have to think about or fear that somebody's going to snatch me up and I'll never see my friends and family again. If I were out in town and I got hungry and I had a few pockets of change, I could stop in and grab a soda. Things were fairly cheap. It was the roaring 80s. I mean, more importantly, my parents would have a tab at the local restaurant where I could walk in. And for those that are listening, they're like, what's a tab? Well, when I was a kid, there was a local restaurant where families could run a tab. It's just like being at a bar. You just say, I want to open a tab, and they would charge your card. And it was just being an open credit line, basically. And then you would order whatever you wanted to order. When it was time to leave, they would just close your card out and actually charge it for the final amount. So for us at the local restaurant, if I was out in town and I wanted a soda, I could stop in at the local store or the local restaurant, get a fountain soda, and they would just put that on our bill. And they would send that bill along with our receipt for every item every month to my family or my parents, and they would pay it. It's quick and easy. My parents would stop in, once or twice a week, grab some food on the way home, and they would do the same thing. And then that way they don't have to pay the one bill once a month, and it was easy. But it was all done on credit, just on a signature. You don't find that anymore because things have changed, times have changed.
I'd say you bring up a good point with the safety factor. That's the biggest thing that comes to my mind is how safe you felt. I mean, back then we used to leave our garage door up. We'd have doors unlocked, and then somehow shortly after that it started to become dangerous, I think countrywide, and it just started to close down. Now you don't even want to try that kind of stuff. You're even afraid to have your kids be outside, at a certain age. It used to always be, hey, when the street lights come on, you need to come home, and that was the plan. And now, people aren't really saying that. More people are getting into trouble. Kids are anyway, and We used to loan things out a lot back then too. It was not uncommon to be at the beach and somebody go, "Hey, can I, throw your frisbee around?" And you know, your brother would be like, "Yeah, sure, go ahead," and not even think twice. And then they'd bring it back later, give it to you. "Hey, thanks a lot." Well, now it's like, "Hey, can I borrow your?" No.
Yeah, and nobody even questions or asks or nothing. If they even ask to begin with to borrow anything. I mean,
Right.
it's so different now that people are afraid to even ask.
Now there's a lot more pandering too. I can't tell you how much pandering, begging for money, begging for things. I mean, I can't tell you every time I go to the gas station, I've got a person at least coming up to me. Let's say in the same day, I can go to the gas station, Walmart, and Target, and I can get asked each time they'll come up to me, need some money. I mean, it's like that's rampant. That's huge now.
Yeah.
It's all over the place.
Yeah, and not to mention, we were always taught as a kid, they always tell you don't talk to strangers, but that's not always the case. I mean, we were always taught to be respectful. If an adult asked you a question, you would answer them. But obviously, we were told be careful talking to strangers. There are certain things you can and can't say, but when I was a kid, kids were meant to be seen and not heard. You didn't talk, yeah, and you didn't talk unless spoken to by an adult first. There was a lot more discipline from an earlier age, and things are so different. And so to bring that forward, let's contrast that with the way the millennials and this generation that's growing up right now. They're definitely seen and heard all over the place, and they have no respect.
That's true.
For the older people. I mean, maybe that's just our perspective. They may want to argue with us, but then again, if we were to insert them into our world, oh wow, those earbuds would have gotten knocked out of your head.
And obviously, you don't want to stereotype everybody. That's not fair. But by and large, there's a big statistic of that.
That's
right.
true. That's true. While I did have my face buried in a book quite a bit, and that was certainly recognized, I could easily play devil's advocate and say, well, but that's no different than having their face buried in their iPhone or their Android.
Now I know that I was talking to you the other day, and I just want to say this real quick, but I was in Mexico the other day for a job, and I had gone to a restaurant in Mexicali where it was a pretty good restaurant, but these millennials were definitely serving me food. Not a gauge in their ears, belts on, pants up, nice shirt, nice haircut, clean cut, very respectful. I was floored because I wasn't in my own country and it was that good.
Yeah,
I was pretty shocked, man.
Yeah, everybody's too. How should I put this? They're
and again, we don't want to stereotype, but I'm just calling what I saw.
Sure, everybody here is too. They want to be so expressive. I want to express myself outwardly.
That's right.
Well,
That's right.
okay, yeah, I'll pat you on the back and say, "Great, you're a special little snowflake," but at the same time,
we're going to quote Chad Prather.
No, but I certainly
not one.
agree with that. No, expressing yourself is one thing, but you shouldn't wear that as an identity 24/7. Again, I know I've preached about that once before, and maybe that's it. Maybe that's the whole deal, is that they feel like that's so much part of them that they have to do it 24/7. I don't. To me, it's just a little bit odd.
It's going to be super hard for us to say that kind of stuff, and actually, because they're going to be what they're going to be, man. This is tough. There are kids. It's just to quote Chad. Just to quote Chad, they are our kids. They are our responsibility. There is that, isn't there? I don't know.
Well, that's true. That's true.
Little awkward. Facebook poke.
Yeah.
Well, any more on the past? I mean, we didn't talk about the 70s. We didn't talk about the Pintos.
Honestly, I don't remember a lot of the 70s. I do remember the gas lines. I do remember gas being cheap when it was available there for a while. I remember helping my dad.
Fireworks.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I do remember. I remember having Roman candle fights and doing a lot of silly things growing up as a kid, and nobody seemed to think twice or blink about it. But today they would be hysterical. And, people would be arrested and on worldwide hip hop or whatever that is on YouTube these days. And I don't know. It's just a different world. I don't know about you, but I rode bicycles without no helmet and
with no handlebars.
Well, that too. I had that's funny because I had a hand-me-down bicycle from my grandmother gave me that was my cousin's, And it had
You
a
had a
banana
Schwinn
seat.
with a spring on the front.
It had a banana seat. And to those that don't know what a banana seat is, because I don't ever see them anymore, they're just a long seat. You could actually set two people on them. And so we had a banana seat, and the handlebars, I guess they were stripped out because no matter how much you cranked that down, you couldn't get them to stay straight. So if you're riding, I could actually move my handlebars up and down. And so it was easier a lot of times. Just once you got going, just to ride with no handlebars, you could just lean left or right. Yeah, it was. It was a chopper. I mean, I was a big motorcycle fan when I was a kid. So you just lean left or right, and the bicycle would turn in the direction you wanted it to. In fact, that was always the fun thing, was we'd ride to the end of the block. And if you get to the end, if you're really good, not everybody in the neighborhood could do it, but you can lean and make the full turn to go around the block. And only make turns by leaning it. And we would take turns to see who could ride around the block, only steering with leaning one way or the other, and count how many times around the block we could make it. It was so fun. And, I hardly ever see any kids riding bicycles anymore in town. I live in a small town here in the Midwest. But when I was a kid, there was kids on bicycles or walking everywhere. But you don't see that anymore.
Oh, we used to ride our bikes all the way to the beach, man. It was like a good 20 miles there, 20 miles back. I mean, that was all the time.
Huh, wow.
Just bikes were everything.
Yeah, I mean, that was your first taste of freedom as a child.
But the problem now is if you get hit by a car, you can't use the cell phone again. You're probably done for.
Well, speaking of phones, I remember as a kid, we didn't have cell phones. We had our landline. We didn't even call them a landline. We just called it the phone.
Well, you got your pay phones you got to run over to.
That's true. We had calling cards and we had quarters in our pockets or times, and we had the phone at home, and there was only one phone usually, and you had to stand over beside where it was attached to the wall and talk on the phone, and your parents would complain.
Person, man. I know a person who has a Nokia cell phone that's 23 years old and still uses this phone.
Wow.
I mean, talk about quality phone.
Yeah, nobody built a cellular phone like Nokia. I had a couple.
Think about
those
that.
Things were like a
23 years old, still working.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty amazing stuff, man.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think we're going to wrap this episode up. Thank you for joining us again. And
okay, so I don't want to let you go yet. Hold on. So we got to make like a pact with everybody.
Oh, what's that?
Well, so we're talking about, success. We're talking about minimum wage. What's going to be the pact? Everyone out there, what will I do if I'm not doing anything? I don't have that job. I will research at the library, or I will join the military, or I will try a program of some sort. I will go and be successful, and I will keep researching until I make it somehow. Better than minimum wage.
Sure.
Right? That's the goal.
I
That's
think
got to be the goal.
That's a reasonable goal, don't you?
Yeah, you got to be better than minimum wage. This is just, let's get that mentality out of there. Get off the sidewalks, go look for the job, go make more than minimum wage. It's got to be your goal. Right, America?
Right. I think so.
There we go.
Yeah. Sounds great.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think with that, we'll call it an end. Thank you for joining us once again. Remember, if you like our program, please check us out for more stories. ChasingIssues.com. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. Or simply share us the next time you have a conversation with your friends and family. We'll see you later. Have a wonderful night.
Peace out.